Hi, folks. We're just waiting for the board members to be done with their closed session, and then they'll come into this session and we'll begin. Thanks so much. And just so folks know, all of your microphones are muted by default. So if the board asks for a few words, you want to speak up, you just click on the microphone button. It should be on the far left of the circle buttons on your screen.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. All right. All right. I see everybody on. Let's see. Felder. Do not see Dr. Felder on.
I think we're also waiting for Tanya.
Yes. Let me just check. All right. Todd, can you reach out to Dr. Felder?
I'll send her a quick text.
I see Tanya's joined. Thank you, Tanya. All right, apologize for the delay. We were just waiting for Dr. Felder to join in just a moment.
Joe is working with her to help her on.
Todd, I didn't get any email for anybody that signed up to speak. Is that true?
I checked about 10 minutes ago and didn't see it, but I can check again.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Just confirming that no one has signed up to speak.
Right. Thank you. Oh, see Dr. Felder joining.
Alas, only
Dr.
knows where I was, but I tried. Sorry.
All right.
Goodness, what an ordeal.
That's okay. All right. I like to call this meeting to order. The Orange County Board of Education pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves in the same courtesy towards both school personnel and each other. As per board policy, Robert's Rule of Order will be used to conduct meetings. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. In addition to the moment of silence at each meeting held at a school site, the board will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain that they are either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interruptions of the meeting. With that, we'll take a moment of silence. All right. Our first agenda item is recognitions. Dr. Felder, I believe we have some recognitions tonight.
Indeed, we do. And so I'm going to invite both Ms. Connie Brimmer and Dr. Chris Gammon to recognize some of our wonderful teachers. We are recognizing 13 Teacher of the Year awardees. And we are also recognizing 3 teachers who are recipients of the PRISM Grant Award. So with that, Ms. Connie Brimmer.
I just want to make sure everyone can hear me before I get started.
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So good evening, Orange County Board of Education. I am really honored to join you tonight to be able to present our 2019-2020 Teacher of the Years for each respective school, and I believe the majority of them are on the call with us tonight. Just a little summary that the requirements to be eligible for the Teacher of the Year for each school are outstanding work performance, character, both in and outside of the classroom. So that also includes the community. 3 or more years of experience as a teacher, and at least one of those years should be in Orange County schools. They should spend not less than 1/2 of their time in a classroom teaching situation. Hold a continuing license, and just one note that retiring teachers and outgoing teachers of the year are not eligible. So I do have the pleasure of introducing to you 13 outstanding educators that go above and beyond the call of duty for the students and families of Orange County schools. So with no further ado, we have Cameron Parks, Teacher of the Year, teaches 5th grade, and that is Miss Amy Price. From Central Elementary, we have Brenda Daly, who teaches kindergarten. From Evelyn Cheats Global Elementary, we have Chris Diaz, who teaches 4th grade. From Grady Brown Elementary, we have Molly Compton, who is a kindergarten teacher. From Hillsborough Elementary, we have Janelle Leonard, which is an exceptional children's teacher. From New Hope Elementary, we have Brenna Leonard, which is a 3rd grade teacher. From Pathways Elementary, we have Robert Herman, who is a 3rd grade teacher. At A.L. Standback, we have Christine Preddy, who is a science teacher. From C.W. Sanford, we have Cassie Roney, who is an ELA teacher. From Cedar Ridge High School, we have Douglas Buchanan, who is a social studies teacher. From Orange High School, we have Brooke Connor, who is a ELA teacher. From Partnership, we have Michael Barnett, who is an exceptional children's teacher. I think I skipped Gravely Hill. We have Anika Opalwall, who is a Spanish teacher. So we want to say congratulations to all of you. I look forward to working with each of you as you move forward and choosing a 2019 Orange County School Teacher of the Year. We are working on that process. We have conducted some interviews virtually. We are still working on virtual interviews. We hope to conduct some virtual panel interviews once we narrow to our 3 finalists. I have thoroughly enjoyed talking. We're not complete with the interviews, but I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to all the wonderful things that these teachers have done for their students and their community. They have gone way above and beyond the call of duty and are really shining examples of all the great staff we have in Orange County. Thank you. Congratulations to all of the Teachers of the Year out there that are with us.
So on behalf of the board, and they're all present, you can see them clapping. We'd like to congratulate you. Obviously, we prefer to have a celebration and have everybody in person. We thank you for everything you're doing right now in this highly unusual situation, and also taking the time out from your family to allow us to recognize you tonight. And we appreciate everything you do every day. And we are so happy to have you part of the Orange County Schools family. Thank y'all. All right.
All right, good evening. This is Dr. Gammon. Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Felder, as well as our community. I'm excited to recognize 3 PRISM grant winners from across Orange County schools. Those 3 teachers are Miss Jennifer Carson, ESL teacher at Grady Brown Elementary School, Miss Christy Mabry, science teacher at A.L. Standback Middle School, as well as Lisa McCurdy, a 3rd grade teacher at Cameron Park Elementary School. Miss Carson has been the ESL teacher at Grady Brown Elementary for several years. Her passion and leadership has fundamentally changed the experience for all students at Grady A. Brown. 4 years ago, Grady Brown's elementary makerspace, named the school's Discovery Lab, was developed with support from a Burroughs Wellcome Prism Award. Since then, the lab is utilized in a variety of ways. All students participate in STEM integrated lessons 9 times per year, co-taught by the academically and intellectually gifted, as well as English language development specialists. Curriculum has been developed in-house to scaffold and enrich these lessons. Teachers can sign up during open lab times and sign out materials, incorporating experiential learning in their own rooms. The Discovery Lab resource library, including NSTA's Picture Perfect series, STEM-focused biographies, and reference books, is being developed. Interest in this work has grown, with many teachers integrating engineering and problem-based learning into literacy, math, science, and social studies, and/or participating in weekly STEM challenges. As a result, the lab is often booked and teachers are unable to utilize the space. One solution to this problem is a new maker cart, which was created using a repurposed nurse's cart and is frequently checked out. With this Prism Award, we can move forward at Grady Brown from having a school makerspace to building capacity for maker-centered learning throughout the school community. 2 more maker carts, Gratnell's storage carts with 16 trays, will be purchased and equipped with tools and materials found in the Discovery Lab. Most are low entry, familiar, and accessible, encouraging student independence and problem solving. Materials and tools requested include multi-purpose cutters and soldering kits, paper and cardboard connectors, cardboard and straw inventor kits and tools, building bricks, brick circuits, and reusable materials. So again, congratulations to Ms. Carson from Grady Brown Elementary School for this Prism Award. Next, we have Ms. Christy Mabry. She is a veteran science teacher at A.L. Standback Middle School, where she teaches 7th grade. An outstanding teacher, she has written and received many grants through the years to enrich the educational experience of her students. Her recent PRISM grant focused on helping students understand the musculoskeletal and nervous systems through explorations using a neuroprosthetic claw. Students will be able to use the claw to engage in a working simulation, showing how their skeletal muscles send electrical responses. The students will also review how to set up a working circuit when they connect the claw to their own muscles. This activity is very engaging and allows students to participate in a STEM activity that reinforces science, technology, and engineering. The kits will foster an understanding of trial and error, analysis of data, prediction, engineering, and design. Students will be able to use the kits to make connections to real-world situations. The classroom kits will allow students to increase their practice with collaboration and using equipment through trial and error to create a working product. Funding the kits will facilitate scientific discourse and enhance their working and procedural vocabulary. These hands-on investigations will help to foster critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication, which are goals we strive to meet daily at A.L. Standback Middle School. So again, congratulations to Ms. Mabry on this PRISM grant. And finally, we have Ms. Lisa McCurdy, 3rd grade teacher at Cameron Park Elementary, who strives to break down barriers to learning in her classroom. She also acts as a peer mentor and resource to other teachers in her school and across the district. For her PRISM grant, she selected tools that will remove barriers which limit her from facilitating more making in her classroom. The tools are designed for elementary students and allow them to make controlled, safe cuts in cardboard and join corrugated cardboard into stable structures. Cardboard cutting tools and construction sets provide materials necessary for students to create 2-dimensional shapes and join them together to produce 3-dimensional products. The cutter tools allow students to cut cardboard safely and with precision. The Makey Classroom Invention Literacy Kit includes a dozen units which allow students to bring these products to life. Using basic circuitry and coding, students will be able to code their creations to light up, make program sounds, and play audio recordings of their voices. Once again, I'd like to take this time to congratulate Ms. Jennifer Carson, Ms. Christy Mabry, and Ms. Lisa McCurdy for their PRISM grant. Congratulations.
And thank you all on behalf of the board. Fantastic. Thank you for all you do. Clearly, applying for these grants and more importantly, getting the grants and having additional material that goes above and beyond and allowing our students to be successful. Thank you for all the hard work and the success that you're giving to our students. Thank you for attending as well tonight. All right. Are there any other recognitions tonight, Dr. Felder?
No, Mr. Atherton.
All right. Okay, with that, board, do we have a adoption of the agenda or a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The agenda is adopted. Consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Could we just include with the revisions to the personnel report?
Yes.
Okay, amended motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that is passed. All right, the next item we have is the solar panel initiative. I did want to preface this. I did send the board out after I'd gotten an email, or shouldn't say an email, several phone calls about this. And Ms. Sarah Pitts has been working closely with the county on looking into this. So I appreciate this. You will note this is an action item. Bless you, Sarah. Smiley.
I was muted, right?
You were.
Okay.
I just could see it. I couldn't
Video.
stop not
Mhm.
saying that. But this is an action item. The county is looking for us to approve the solar panel project or not. But I just wanted to give that quick overview before we move to Sarah Pitts. All right, Sarah, can you take us through?
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to review with you tonight the solar panel initiative as brought forward by the Board of County Commissioners. So earlier this spring, the Board of County Commissioners brought this in their budget. As part of the Orange County fiscal year 20 budget, the Board of County Commissioners instituted a climate action tax throughout the county as part of the climate change mitigation project. The county was relying on recommendations from their Board of the Environment, which is a group that advises the Board of County Commissioners on matters affecting the natural environment in Orange County schools. So the Commission for the Environment brought forth their recommendations of how this tax could be best spent. One of the recommendations was for a $150,000 solar panel grant for both Orange County schools and Chapel Hill Carver City schools. The Commission for the Environment scored their projects based on 6 criteria, which included basically emission reductions, the efficient use of the funds, time to complete the projects, visibility, messaging, and the likelihood for success. So in addition to the $150,000 grant, which we could apply for the county, there is also a potential of a $75,000 incentive, which could be made available from Duke Energy, and we would have to apply for that in the very near future. So with those two together, it could raise the potential budget for this up to $225,000. So though it's important to note, a full site selection assessment has not been completed, but we do have several options for schools which contain the appropriate roof, looking at materials and lifespans, and we do have the capability within our staff to complete this project within the money that's available. We have been working with the county to clarify expectations, requirements, and review options. That way we know that we can meet all of their needs. At this point in planning, again, we are confident that we can meet the county's expectations for the project. Their requirements would be to install a monitor to visibly show the output of the production of the panels, that we take into good faith consideration a leasing program. There is a report requirement stating that we have to tell them the amount of energy which is output by these solar panels compared to the amount of energy that that building demands. We would also make sure that we worked with Chapel Hill Carver City Schools, and I've been talking to their sustainability coordinator there quite frequently, Mr. Dan Schnitzer, to make sure that we are coinciding our projects to potentially reduce any costs and just to get a better deal. So when we're looking at the panels, there are two methods of procurement in which we could follow. One would be a direct purchase. This would be that the district would assume a contract with a vendor to design and install the equipment, and then the panels would be ours outright. We would own them. We would be required to maintain them. And looking at this with the funding, we would definitely have enough to be able to do this project. The other one would be a leasing model, which would enable us to install a much larger system by potentially using the Duke incentive as a down payment. We would work with a vendor to add verbiage to the service contract to ensure that the cost of the lease payment would be less than our predicted savings. So we would set that up to make sure that we had a positive income balance there. Under this option, the leaseholder would own the panels for the first 5, 10, even 20 years, depending on how we would like to set up that lease, while they recoup their investment, and they would take advantage of any solar credits that we would not have access to. At the end of the contract, basically the district would have 3 options in moving forward with this program. We could choose to purchase the panels outright at a pre-negotiated cost. We could negotiate a new lease agreement, or we could have the vendor come in and remove those panels at no cost to us. In looking at it and with talking with Brennan Bauman, the county's sustainability coordinator, it appears that option 1 would be mutually beneficial to all parties involved. The district and the campus could take advantage of the environmental and financial savings, while the vendor could receive the tax credits, and then they would, of course, remove liability from their ownership once we fulfilled the lease and decided to buy outright or remove the panels. We have also been in conversation with the county, and we have been reviewing RFP processes for potential leasing. We have been reviewing OWASA's option. OWASA has just installed solar panels at 5 different locations. And using their case study, we would be able to have about a 180 kilowatt system. So in speaking with a couple of solar panel vendors, decisions would be made dependent on location in our schools. We would, of course, want to install panels, if the board approves it, on a school which has a membrane that could support this and that has been replaced recently, so we can get additional lifespan out of it. We would make sure that the setup was great for sunshine. We would have no trees overhanging it. And we would also try to select a school that has an environmental program, so the children there could take the solar panel initiative and put that into their learning. Typical payback for solar panels is about 5 to 7 years from the initial onset. And we would also start to look at evaluating cost per kilowatt, because the idea would be to set this up at a school where we pay the highest rates per kilowatt. That way we receive the max in our funding. So if the board approves this recommendation, we'll begin the process of a formal assessment with vendors to bring a comprehensive plan and recommendations to the board. At the April 7th BoCC meeting, they approved the recommendation to allow Orange County Schools and Chapel Hill to take the opportunity to determine whether or not the solar panel initiative would be feasible at this time. And they are requesting a response back from us in the next 2 weeks. At this point, the operations department has done an initial assessment, and we feel that this is feasible, and that we are recommending that the board take into consideration the superintendent's recommendation to accept and approve the grant for the solar panel initiative and allow us to move forward in determining a site and responding back to the Board of County Commissioners. Are there any questions for me at this time?
Sarah Smiley.
Oh, sorry.
I have two questions. Thank you for all that information. So the first one is, will we take another step later to determine the should the district purchase or should the district lease question? That was one question. And the other is a totally different topic, which is solar is a really huge growth industry. And I'm wondering if there's any opportunity there for CTE, for our CTE students to get some exposure. Like the jobs in solar are just exploding right now. So that I'm excited about the environmental learning, and also that feels like potentially a different angle where we could get some benefit.
Yes, we would definitely, in reviewing the RFP and moving forward, look at the benefit in purchase versus the lease cost, and we would take that into consideration. We would also look at what would be best for us once this is up, weighing the pro of if we were to lease, the company would be responsible for all maintenance and upkeep, whereas if we were to own it, we would have to assign maintenance technicians to do that. With solar, it's a great idea, but a lot of the education is in the data, not necessarily the panels themselves. We could talk to the installers to see if that would be an option, but it may be potentially asking them if they had some panels that had maybe met their life expectancy, and allowing those panels to maybe go to a CTE course where they could be taken apart and they could look into those and maybe do some work, and then also allow them to use this data to show the benefit and future any learning possibilities there.
Thanks.
All right, other questions from the board?
I have a couple questions and comments.
Go ahead, Matthew.
Okay, on for full disclosure and transparency, I actually have solar panels on my house, so they're from an educational viewpoint, each panel has a monitor on it, so you can tie that into your continuing education so that the students can see how during the day the electrical production changes as it goes forward, depending on what kind of monitor that you have. So there is an opportunity there for bringing science into the class, depending on which school that you put it on. Next comment is I've heard Duke Energy, but at least probably two of our elementary schools are probably with Piedmont Electric. Eflin Cheeks, it could be Duke, depending on how they did the line through there. But are all of our schools on Duke Energy?
No, sir. We currently have 7 schools on Duke Energy.
Okay. The reason I bring that up is because Piedmont Electric might be our higher cost per kilowatt. And they may have some incentives also. But now the negative side of it. My solar panels are on the roof. And at some point, I will have to put new shingles on my roof. And you mentioned it. But who's going to, are they going to be designed in such a way that if that flat roof that we're going to put it on starts leaking, that it will be easy to repair?
Yes, sir. We would do our best to work with the vendor to ensure that installation would, first of all, not void our or any roof warranties that we have. And second, we would try to put them on a location that would be beneficial for us to conduct any repairs, run conduits, and be able to maintain those.
Yeah, reason I'm bringing it up, for flat roofs for them to be able to repair without taking them down, they're going to have to be elevated.
Yes, and anytime we would do that, we would try to hire either the vendor who was installing, another structural engineer to come in and take a look at our roofs to make sure that they could support and we would not do any damage in putting these on.
Now, the biggest concern that I have, we have a lot, or have we had an opportunity to take a look and say, are there other areas that would be more beneficial from an environmental standpoint other than solar panels? Do we have some HVACs that if we replace those, that it would improve the indoor air quality, comfort for our schools, and also reduce our energy consumption? But I'm saying, have we had an opportunity to evaluate solar the best option for us?
So Matthew, I'll intervene on this. So the county.
County told us what to do, right?
Well, no, I was going to say that the environmental board had made the recommendation to apply these two grants to the schools for solar. I was told by the county that if we would like other options to be considered, we could submit those, and I do recommend we do this, that we
Okay.
would submit it to that board for consideration for grants. But this one has already been went through the board. That's the recommendation that came out, not the Orange County commissioners. This is the environmental board that came up with this recommendation as one of the highest impacts. And so this item specifically is for solar. And like I said, the other areas that you had mentioned, whether it's, changing the envelope, putting new windows and all those, we can absolutely apply for that, and we should, because it's just part of the grant money. But this specific item is for solar, so it's a yes, no on it for this 150K.
Comment.
Yes.
I just wanted to praise Sarah Pitts putting together a wonderful presentation. Sometimes discussions on solar can get confusing. Hers was not. I think it's a great opportunity. The money has been made available. I think chambering up with Duke Power for that additional 75,000 would be a smart move. And once again, she's only been doing this work in operations for a relatively short period of time. And I think she's done an amazing job. I also want to note for your record keeping purposes that I will be leaving this meeting. I'm not feeling well. I'll be leaving this meeting right after this particular topic is finished.
Thank you, Dr. H. Any other comments? All right. I'd like to say, do we have?
I was going to move the approval of because it's an action item.
Absolutely.
Second.
All right, discussion. The only item I was going to add was, Sarah, thank you so much. I know this came up kind of quick. Appreciate all the focus, all the options, and looking at all the details. And as mentioned, I do think we should work with the Chapel Hill schools to see if we can do some volume install and purchase or lease, whichever one we do, since they have already approved this as well. I think there's some economies of scales that we could gain by doing that. So, all right. Any other discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries. Thank you, Sarah. All right. Our next item is going into the informational portion of our meeting. So the first item is the joint school board of county commissioners. Hopefully y'all have all seen that will be on April 28th at 7 p.m. This is where we will, both school systems will present their budget to the county commissioners. I think y'all did see that we did get an update that Chapel Hill did pass a $505 per pupil budget to bring forward to the county commissioners, which includes several different items. The other item I just want to mention is that they did not approve a one-time bonus for the teachers. They are looking as part of their 505 to get the county to do an ongoing pay raise instead of a one-time bonus. So it is what it is. I'm just sharing the information. Part of this discussion was to talk about in this budget meeting how we're going to present, which board members would like to discuss the different aspects of our budget, so we get an opportunity to talk further into the items. I believe typically the way it's done is we have Rhonda present the official budget, and then it's left open for board members to comment or additional questions. So with that, I'd just like to ask the board if the board would like to talk to any of the items for our budget as we present to the county.
Will, are you proposing that we do that rather than have Dr. Felder and Ms. Rath, I mean, not Ms. Rath, but Dr. Felder's portion where she like shares the vision and because I think that the presentation that she did for us that voices over like, this is what is necessary, here's why, that's how this leads to these requests is really powerful.
Yes, I'm not recommending, I'm recommending we still do that. All I was getting at is after that, did we want any board members to go in and say, hey, the 2 additional school counselors is very important because of this, or give the board a chance to discuss any of the items in more detail. I mean, it's perfectly fine. We could go in, have the presentation. I just want to give the opportunity to let other board members or all board members, if they would like to speak on any of those, or if we'll just wait and have just an open dialogue. All are okay. I just don't want to go in where we feel like, oh, let's, I wish we would have talked about having this person speak or this person speak.
Will?
Yes, Matthew.
My preference is to go in and have an open dialogue. That let Dr. Felder make her presentation, and then if the county commissioners have questions to a specific item, and if I feel strongly about it, I'll speak up.
All right, thank you, Matthew. Other thoughts?
I'm fine with the open dialogue as well.
Okay.
Yep, me too.
All right.
Yeah, me too.
Perfect. Dr. Felder, did you have any other comments or questions on this topic?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Then what we'll do is on the 28th, we'll go in and present the prior presentation and then present this and then our separate request for the bonus, and then we'll answer any questions. It will be all Chapel Hill School Board, all of our school board, and the Orange County Board of Commissioners. So there will be a lot of people on this call. So you'll note in the email I had sent that they're going to ask us to use Zoom with the hand raising. It'll be an option on the toolbar. So if you want to be recognized, you just have to raise your hand to speak. All right. With that, we'll move to the next agenda item if there's no other comments. All right, mill price for the 2020-21 school year.
Good evening on the board. Included in your package is information on section 747 of the Consolidation Appropriation Act as it relates to child nutrition services, and meal prices. The intent of this act is to ensure that sufficient funds are provided to the food service account for paid lunches. It also states that Congress provides that only school food authorities that have a negative balance in the nonprofit school food service account as of December 31st of 2019 shall be required to establish prices for the paid lunches according to the paid lunch equity provisions. As stated in 747, school authorities will be required to leave the prices the same for paid lunches due to a positive balance in the account. As of December 31st, 2019, our child nutrition department had a positive balance. Therefore, to be consistent with the Appropriation Act, recommending that we maintain current meal prices for the upcoming school year, and that would allow us to be proactive in regards to the federal government regulations and the Provisions Act. Breakfast would be $1.40 for students and a la carte for adults. Lunch of elementary students would be $2.45. Middle and high school would be $2.95. And then, of course, it would be a la carte for the adults. So at this time, the superintendent recommends that the Board of Education receive for information the following meal prices as stated to be effective as of July 1st, 2020. And again, that would be $1.40 for breakfast, $2.45 for elementary lunch, and $2.95 for middle and high school lunch.
All right, any questions from any board member? All right, Sarah Pitt, thank you so much. I think it speaks volumes for us to have a positive on our nutrition, and appreciate all your support in that area.
Thank you.
All right, our last item on the agenda is the COVID-19 update. And I know there's lots of information to share. So, Dr. Felder.
Thank you, Mr. Atherton. And again, good evening, board. And so, as you know, throughout this COVID-19 crisis, the district has had a laser-like focus on 4 areas. The first being on safety, second, food. We've also had a very strong focus on learning, and last but not least, wholeness and wellness, how to ensure that we are keeping our students and staff whole and well. And so with that, tonight, staff are going to provide an update since our last meeting to let you know about the work that we've been doing in each of those categories. So we're going to begin first with safety. And so once again, you're going to hear from Mrs. Pitts. So Mrs. Pitts.
So to ensure that our staff stay safe while they are operating within the buildings in the confines of our grounds, we continue to operate on a split shift schedule to ensure social distancing and ensure that our staff members do not overlap on their schedules. We are including all of this guidance with our vendors and operators who are working on site and making sure that they are following recommendations of the CDC and Orange County Health Department to make sure that they do not bring any of the virus or potential sick employees onto the sites. And we are requiring that our vendors report their internal practices to our operations department prior to beginning work. That way we can ensure everyone, again, stays safe. We are providing PPE to staff members, including gloves, masks, sanitizers, and we are reviewing recommendations and best practices on a regular basis to ensure those that are on the front line can remain safe and healthy. We have made changes recently to the operation of our transportation department regarding their tech schedule, and this is in response to the positive case that they had in the Chapel Hill transportation department. As of last week, they had one staff member who tested positive. I just received a phone call while we were in closed session stating that Chapel Hill has had 3 additional confirmed cases.
Oh, my.
So as soon as this call is over, I will be working with Ms. McCulley to make sure that our practices are safe and aligned. In response to the initial Chapel Hill response, those staff members who were on site at Chapel Hill were sent home to quarantine. And again, any staff members that would have been working Wednesday, Thursday of last week will be advised to quarantine themselves. We will also be cleaning our transportation department, as it appears that a staff member who may have potentially been at Chapel Hill was on site today.
Whoa.
Just in the bay, so we will make sure that all cleaning there aligns with health department recommendations. And then there will be staff members in Orange County who will be collaborating together to make sure that we have a great internal administrative procedure in response to positive case in Orange County schools, someone potentially being exposed and coming onto our campuses. So we will make sure that our plan aligns with guidance given by the health department for infectious disease, and we will be consulting with them, and our quarantine and cleaning procedures will align with everything that is stated in best practice. That is all I have for you tonight. Are there any questions for me?
Sarah, this Matthew got one question. When the parents pick up their meals, what procedure do we have in place that if something was, if one of our employees was exposed and it could have been one that the families came in contact with, do we have any type of records that we know who we need to call to alert them that they may need to do additional self-quarantines?
Yes, sir. We are currently doing split shifts for our child nutrition services employees. And it is for that exact reason. We have a schedule of who is working at each site that is kept by the child nutrition director. And if there is ever any concern of a potential employee being exposed, we would send the group that was at that particular site to be quarantined. That site would be thoroughly cleaned, and we could open up a feeding site at another school where we would not have to worry about cross-contamination or employees working in the same space.
Where I was really heading it was, let's say that we have a bus driver that we identified that tested positive, that had been helping pass out food at one of our stop-off points. Are we going to be able to alert the families that they may have potentially been exposed? Are we keeping a record of who's picking up food?
No, sir, we are not. To the best of my knowledge, we are not recording. The only thing we are recording is the number of meals that we pass out. We are not recording the names of those who come to pick up.
The reason
that is something we could take into consideration. Yes.
I really think it's something that you may want to take into consideration. Reason I had a call from one of my nephews today, and one of his coworkers was exposed to it, and they were able to inform him so that he knew he had to be more aware when he was around his children. So they were able to alert him that he may have potentially been exposed to it. And I think that we need to be able to alert our families that I'm not saying there has been, but we need to be prepared to alert families when they might have potentially been around someone who was exposed to it.
Yes, sir. We can definitely look into that, and we will work with Ms. Keeling to make sure that our verbiage that is used in the conversation that is had is done in an equitable manner, and that we ensure those parents who are coming to pick up meals that everything will be confidential And we will only
Yes.
use this information in the event of potential exposure.
It has to be confidential, and we have to try to do it in a way not to overly panic people. So I just saying that I think that we need to be prepared to alert parents.
And there might be some other ways to do that as well. I mean, other than collecting names of people who are coming, there might be ways to then say, it was at this, if you picked up food at this site in this window. So there might be multiple ways to do it.
Right. I would not want to discourage people from coming to pick up food. If they're not,
We have to be careful, but we have to be able to respond if the worst case happens.
Well, if there are no additional questions for me, then I will introduce Ms. Sharita Cobb to discuss our food and our feeding sites.
Thank you, Ms. Pitts. Ms. Scott?
Good evening, board. Yes, I will be discussing our food that we've done. So thus far, as of 4/17/20, in the district, we have provided 22,249 breakfast lunch combinations at 13 feeding sites. That information at the sites and where we are actually doing the feeding or dropping the food at can be found on the Orange County Schools webpage. We have a page where we update as we site. I have been in consultation at the request of the board to discuss with White Cross Volunteer Fire Department. And we are trying to work out a system to get the food delivered there, and they will be a feeding site for us. So we are working with our shortened or our staff has lessened, so we're trying to work that out. And once we get that straight, we will put that on that website.
I'm having a really hard time hearing Ms. Cobb. Is anybody else?
Yeah, it sounds like you just got to get a little closer, Ms. Cobbs, to the mic, maybe.
Okay. I'm trying. Can you hear me better now?
That's much better.
Yes.
Okay, I apologize. So I was just saying that we are working, have been in consultation with the White Cross Volunteer Fire Department to try to set up a delivery plan so that they can be a feeding site for that area of the district. Food was not distributed on April 13th due to high winds and weather concerns for the buses being on the road, but we still were able to provide food the day before and the day after. As of 4/17/2020, we had collected $9,765 through our K-12 payment center, and we've spent a little over $2,100 of that money on supplemental food that we put in boxes, and those boxes go out every Wednesday. We've given out 626 extra food boxes as a result of that. That amount sounds low that we've spent, but we still are receiving food donations, and we are purchasing in bulk, so we're able to get a really good deal. And we've had the community has been awesome in giving us donations of food and different items, as well as fruits and vegetables. We are very thankful again to our SROs for their continued support and volunteering to help us package and then to distribute those boxes. And in order to adhere to social distancing requirements, we are not accepting at this time any more volunteers right now, but we will keep you posted as that need may arise. I am working with our school-based social workers on their food deliveries and making sure that they are being done in a timely and safe manner. I have provided them all with safety bags, and in those safety bags, they have gloves, they have masks, and they have bottles of hand sanitizers that they take out with them when they go out to deliver their weekly or bi-weekly food boxes. We continue to be so grateful to the continued support and efforts of our efforts to provide supplemental food to our school community by our community partners. And some of those community partners include Weaver Street Market, Radius Pizza, Porch of Hillsboro, Hillsboro Rotary Club, Wendy Bottoms Farms, Boxcar Cheese Farm and Creamery, and the North Carolina Farmer Food Share, and the very generous community members that have and continue to give financial donations to the K-12 donation site. Are there any questions?
Ms. Cobb, if additional families also need supplemental food, is the best step for them to reach out to their school social worker?
Yes, ma'am. So if they reach out to their school social worker, that school social worker, if she does not have food readily available, she makes a recommendation to OCIM, and they normally can go and pick up a food box from OCIM based on that recommendation the same day. If that is not an option, then the social worker may call me, or if they call the helpline or number that we have for Orange County Schools, that person that's answering, we have someone answering in English and someone that's answering in Spanish, they will give me a call, and then we will do the best we can to get them something out that day.
Mm-hmm. So the food boxes that are going out, there's some that's going out through the social workers and there's some going out through the lunch sites. Is that right? Or?
Yes, ma'am. So the school-based social workers had a list before any of the COVID started of food insecure families that they were supporting. So they are continuing to support those families, and the families that we are attempting to support in our efforts on Wednesdays are those families who now, because of COVID-19, have become food insecure.
And so I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, it seems like we're getting the donations in. We're able to provide the food boxes on Wednesdays at the lunch sites. Is someone sort of best first thing to contact the social worker, or perhaps go there and receive a food box through the lunches if they're sort of already going?
It's probably best for them to contact their school-based social worker. And then if she can't do anything, her next step, which is within hours, is to contact me, and then we will work together to provide what we can for that family.
Okay. Did you say, sorry, I don't want to monopolize, but I had trouble hearing you at the very beginning. Did you say we've served over 20,000 meals right now?
We have, excuse me, we have presently served 22,249 food bags of breakfast lunch combinations at the 13 feeding sites across the district.
That's fantastic.
Any other questions?
There is one other question that Sarah had asked electronically about the 10,000 per week that was coming up for the child nutrition during this. Could you answer that, or who could answer that, Dr. Felder?
Hi, Mr. Atherton. So Mrs. Rath is going to speak to that item, and it's actually next on the list.
Okay, perfect. We'll wait.
Items to provide an update on, but thank you.
Perfect.
So if there are no other questions for me, I will be turning it over to Dr. Gammon, who will start addressing pre and post.
Well, actually, Ms. Cobb, we're going to let Mrs. Rath speak to the child nutrition shortfall. But thank you so much.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. As I had shared with you in the board updates this week, we have been keeping close contact with our child nutrition department to make sure basically that the program is still healthy and profitable. And I shared with you a $10,000 a week shortfall, which is a worst case scenario based upon what we know at this time. But what is happening is the reimbursements that we are receiving for our meals are not enough to cover the payroll of the staff working plus the food cost. So as a result, we could potentially have some extra expenses associated with that, or we may elect or can elect to let the program utilize its available fund balance. And I am okay with that and would recommend that as long as it was not a, we did not allow a lot of fund balance to be utilized and drained, which could then jeopardize the program at a future date. I do believe it is prudent for them to have some fund balance available. However, at this time, they roughly have about 3 months of expenses at the last we looked. So they could offset some of these expenditures with their own fund balance. And when we have more finalized information, I will be, of course, bringing that to the board for discussion to determine if we would want to offset those costs from our local budget or utilize fund balance from that child nutrition fund.
Rhonda, one quick, just for clarifications. We've allocated everything that we can per on state guidelines from their special allotment for coronavirus.
Yes, sir. I am utilizing, and that I would utilize that first if it's available, but what we have assigned those funds for in support of the other things that we are doing, I'm not confident that there will be enough of those funds available.
Yeah. The reason I was a little confused whether or not some of the things we were trying to allocate towards those funds were going to qualify or not.
Yes, and that is a great question, and you are exactly right. Some of the things we are still having to take out of our local budget that we had approved previously because they do not qualify, but the largest portion of them are qualifying, and we are utilizing those state funds.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, any other questions from any board member? All right, thank you, Rhonda.
Okay, so the next item that we want to provide the board with an update on is learning. And so would just like to begin by reiterating that Orange County Schools remains committed to continuing student growth and learning through COVID-19 and is doing so through remote learning. As a district, we've been forced to modify our support to our students without warning, but educators throughout the district have stepped up in a really big way to meet the challenge. We know that learning occurs in a multiple of ways. As a result, Orange County Schools remote learning opportunities provide a multitude of options for learning to continue. I would also just like to state that much like the evolving nature of COVID-19, the district's remote learning opportunities are evolving. And so at this time, I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Gammon, who's going to talk to us about where we are with regards to remote learning, as well as provide an update on the next phases of remote learning that will be rolled out over the next few weeks. So Dr. Gammon.
Thank you, Dr. Felder. Good evening again. I want to talk to you tonight about our 3 phases of remote learning. Phase 1 of our remote learning plan began on March 16th. That phase has just ended this past Friday, April 17th. During our first phase of remote learning, Orange County Schools formed a remote learning team, which was composed of classroom teachers and support staff representing all of our schools, as well as principals and central office staff. The remote learning team worked to develop remote learning opportunities for students. These were not designed or intended to replace the typical school day, but they were intended to supplement and provide practice and enrichment activities for students as we began this remote learning process. During that first phase, the remote learning team developed the first round of choice boards for pre-K through 8th grade students, as well as supplemental and practice activities at the 9-12 level. The choice boards provide supplemental learning opportunities, again, to extend and enrich learning and to review skills and concepts previously taught this year. Students and families have been informed that they are not limited to certain choices on the choice boards. Regardless of ability level, students and families can choose the learning opportunities and the grade level choice board that's best for them. For example, a 4th grader can choose to extend or enrich his or her understanding of 4th grade concepts and or work on all or some of the learning activities on a 6th grade choice board. While not replacing choice boards, schools have also been instructed to supplement choice boards to meet the individual student needs of their school community. In addition to the choice boards as well as the remote learning team, we also developed a remote learning website, which was shared at our last board meeting. It was developed to provide access to choice boards and any supplemental materials, as well as a myriad of additional online instructional resources, social emotional learning resources, as well as specific supports for EC, ESL, and AIG identified students. Our EC students, as well as ESL students, are being augmented, their instructions being augmented, supplemented, and they're being accommodated through modified work through various means. There are accommodations and modification suggestions that have been placed within the choice boards on the remote learning website, and they have been placed within the paper copies of the choice boards. A separate list of special education resources is available on the remote learning website. EC and ESL teachers can participate in a teacher's virtual class as a co-teacher or have their own virtual class working to support the work in the choice boards. This also includes our related service providers. As far as AIG, our AIG staff has developed an AIG remote learning site. This remote learning site is embedded into the Orange County Schools' larger remote learning site. Our AIG specialists are providing augmented and or supplemental work to support assignments provided by AIG students' classroom teachers. They are serving on the remote learning team, collaborating with teachers to differentiate, include extensions and enrichment within the choice boards. And when appropriate, our AIG facilitators are providing additional learning opportunities for gifted students. These include tasks in Google Classroom, book clubs, STEM activities, or other enrichment opportunities. They are providing meaningful feedback to students, contacting and being responsive to students and families regarding learning activities and their needs. This can come through many forms such as newsletters, emails, a Canvas, Google Classroom, and phone calls. They are maintaining a log to document how services are taking place through remote learning. And as we've stated before, teacher office hours were established during phase 1 for all students district-wide to further support continued learning and to meet students' social emotional needs. Teachers have been providing students with meaningful feedback to promote continued growth per guidance by NCDPI. And again, we've had a continued emphasis on social emotional learning. At this time, we are transitioning into phase 2 of the remote learning experience. This phase began today, April 20th. It will run for the next 2 weeks through May 1st. During phase 2, the remote learning team has developed and has released today the second round of choice boards. The second round of choice boards is accessible on the remote learning site as well as at community sites. We do have numbers, approximate numbers that we've been able to compile from phase 1. 1,052 paper copies were mailed to students. Again, 1,052 paper copies as of Friday were mailed to students. Approximately 1,200 packets were picked up from community sites, giving us approximately 2,200 packets that have been issued out to students. We did receive 66 requests for paper copy packets that came through our call center. We also had 1,127 requests through the schools that equated to 1,052 of that 1,127 being mailed. Some of those were not requested to be mailed. Families informed the school that they needed packets, but said they would pick them up at the community locations. So we do have a better estimate at this point of the amount of students and specific students needing those packets. As I stated, the second round of choice boards was issued today. Schools continue to supplement the choice boards to best meet the needs of their students and the school community. During this phase, however, we are embarking on developing asynchronous learning opportunities that will address the end of third and fourth marking period critical content power standards that have been identified by our district and school-based coaches that students will need to be exposed to prepare them for the next level or course when schools reopen. So our reasoning for choosing asynchronous learning is that it is a key feature of successful online learning programs. Asynchronous refers to students' ability to access learning and demonstrate what they've learned on their own time. Our students and family schedules, internet access, home learning environments, and other critical factors vary. Asynchronous remote learning affords students and their families the flexibility they need while still being able to continue learning. So our remote learning team is planning and prepping for asynchronous learning opportunities, which are scheduled to roll out effective on May 4th. Coaches, as I stated, are being leveraged to create pre-recorded instructional videos based on the end of third and fourth marking period power standards. Teachers can use the videos created by the coaches and or pre-record and upload their own instructional videos as long as they are focused on those end of third through fourth quarter power standards. Schools can can develop and refine teacher office hours or class time to reduce overlap moving forward and to provide students flexible opportunities to review the asynchronous videos and those power concepts to best meet the needs of their respective school communities. Teachers, again, are not expected to be perfect or proficient with remote learning. COVID-19 has forced the entire world to re-examine teaching and learning. This crisis has revealed flaws, shortcomings in our nation's out-of-date educational system. However, from a technology standpoint, we're doing everything in our power to reimagine the work that we're doing moving forward to best meet the needs of our kids. So teachers who are currently providing virtual instruction will continue doing so, but as I've stated, that will be with a primary focus on those end of third into fourth marking period power standards. Teachers will provide flexible due dates for assignments, and the focus will continue to be providing students with meaningful feedback through these upcoming phases. We do have a mandatory required professional development around meaningful feedback that is being released to all teachers this week. This was developed by our central office curriculum and instruction facilitators. Teachers are strongly encouraged to opt in to additional PD, which will be provided for around asynchronous learning. This again is not required, but it is an optional opt-in for teachers who would like to participate with coaches in developing these asynchronous lessons. Teachers are going to continue to connect with students weekly to further support continued learning as well as meet their social emotional needs. And this will take us through May 1st, the development of these asynchronous lessons. They will be embedded into our third and fourth round of choice boards, which will be coming out in the next several weeks. This will lead us into phase 3. Phase 3 is May 4th through May 16th, or excuse me, May 15th or beyond, depending on if schools reopen. Remote learning teams at that time will release the third round of choice boards on May 4th, as well as the fourth round on May 18th. Asynchronous learning videos and assignments, again, based on those critical power standards, will be implemented through those choice boards. Focus, again, even in phase 3, will be around providing students meaningful feedback. And we will continue to emphasize social emotional learning. If schools should reopen on May 18th, our continued emphasis will be around social emotional learning. But the beauty of the asynchronous model is that we will have basically a warehouse of these resources that we can continue to use to connect with these power concepts, even if students do return to school in a flipped classroom fashion, where students will be able to preview these concepts and still utilize these videos even if they return to school. Again, this is it's a very fluid situation. It is evolving week to week. I have been so thrilled by the work that has been put in by our remote learning team, just the quick turnaround throughout this process and their ability to really just capture this work for students and do what's best for our kids. So I'm extremely blessed to serve on this team, and I thank you so much for your time and just support throughout this phasing rollout of remote learning. Are there any questions at this time about next steps?
Well,
Go ahead, Matt.
A question.
Go ahead, Matthew.
And it's really dealing more with observation. When we're getting updates on the number of meals that we're able to meet our family needs on feeding, and we got the update on how many packets that we have mailed out. But how many students have actually had contact with the teacher since this has happened?
That's a great question, Mr. Roberts. I do know that Mr. Johnson has had some issues accessing the meeting this evening. He is going to talk specifically about those numbers in just a few minutes. So I just wanted to be helpful with that.
Okay. The reason I'm going from that, I have one boy who has been participating in Zoom classrooms. He started 2 class days after the quarantine was put in place for him. And 4 days a week, he has a meeting with each teacher. They assign new assignments. They grade his assignments. And most important thing is he has an opportunity to socially interact with his other classmates. And I'm just trying to figure out, because we went ahead and approved an additional stipend for internet cost and cell phone costs for our teachers. Really do want an update on how many students have been contacted by the teachers and say, did you get that packet that we mailed to you? Did you get that packet that someone picked up, and have you finished it? I have parents calling me, and the most recent one was an AIG parent saying that their child has basically said they're not going to do anything because their grades are already set. And a high school AIG student. So it's a little bit harder motivating students from remote learning, especially if we're not contacting them. And so I'll wait for Mr. Johnson.
Any other comments?
I have a comment. Thank you for the information about the paper packets. I wanted to say I've appreciated the emails, Dr. Felder, that you have been sending out. The one about social emotional learning, the one about that came out today about the sort of transitions over this time, even the one before spring break. I just have appreciated the communication and appreciated that you all are continuing to think about what is the best way for us to do this next phase of this. I wonder if when we're thinking about the asynchronous learning, I'm excited to hear that that's going to start happening. I'm also thinking about, we're all new to online learning, and yet there are some like companies and websites and things that's what they do, right? Like Khan Academy, and there are some of these places. Are we leveraging any of those sources that are intended to be online for learning things? Or is that sort of featuring in here at all in terms of teaching some of these new standards?
Yeah, so to answer that, and it's a great question. So the Khan Academy, and we could use any of those other programs, there are a lot of those have been embedded into the remote learning site. And we have been encouraging teachers throughout the process of the choice board creation that they can embed those types of videos that don't necessarily have to be an Orange County Schools teacher created. It could be that they're accessing that as a resource. We do have, because we're making the shift to asynchronous learning, we're going to have more of a prioritized focus in that area. We are meeting with our remote learning teams, and we have them kind of broken out K5, 6, 8, 9, 12. And we have meetings scheduled for Wednesday of this week to go through more of the specifics around what those videos can or cannot entail, so that there's some structures around that, but also giving them some latitude and autonomy for creativity, because we know there's a lot of really cool stuff that's actually already happening in our schools, not only asynchronous, but even synchronous, as Mr. Roberts was noting, where teachers are logging on, they are having some sessions with kids where kids are able to access. We are not trying to take that away. We're trying to build in the asynchronous experience to meet those needs. And then if kids have questions, if they need additional support, the teachers would have some available time through their class schedule or office hours to be able to really connect around those asynchronous learning opportunities. So I hope that that's helpful.
Thank you. I do have one more question, but I think it might be more appropriate for Mr. Johnson's segment. So you tell me. How's everyone do? Like, I want to know how everyone is doing. Like, I want to know how our teachers are doing and how our kids are doing, how they are making it through this, and what their thoughts are about how things are going. Teachers, students, central office staff, really everybody. And I'm wondering if we have a way to know that. I'm guessing the answer is no. And so are there any plans to know how people are doing outside of sort of word of mouth?
So, Mrs. Smiley, I think I can speak to that a little. And so I will say that we are certainly getting some updates with regards to the teacher outreach. And so, and Mr. Johnson can speak to that. He's having some technical difficulties. And so I'm going to try to use my phone to have him be able to participate. But there are, spreadsheets that we are capturing. Each school is capturing information about how frequently teachers are able to connect with students. What are some of the concerns that are raised? I will tell you there's just a range. And even among our staff, I'm hearing about teachers who are now food insecure. I'm hearing about teachers who are stressed and staff who are stressed, trying to take care of their own families, and also, while trying to continue to provide instruction and address students and family social emotional needs. And so, so, with regards to staff, we probably could do a better job of checking in and seeing how staff are doing. Again, I believe site-based administrators are checking in with their staff, but we know that staff are stressed. We are, continue to provide the resources that we can, for example, employee assistance program, and, just trying to encourage and inspire. But, bottom line is it's difficult. This is a stress and that, families have not experienced before, our staff has not experienced before, and we're just doing our best to get through it.
Thank you. And I know you are. And part of why I asked that is because week 5 for me was like a real bottoming out. It was like not as good as weeks 1 through 4. And so I imagine that our teachers and our families and our staff and just everybody is going to go through these moments, and just really wanted to keep an eye on how everyone's doing and making sure that people are feeling really sort of supported. Yeah. So thank you.
I have a question, maybe more for you, Dr. Felder, I'm not sure. And it's more to the students. Do we have a helpline, not for educational purposes, but just for the stress for students to call, that's confidential and anonymous? I have heard through, different sources that some of the students are feeling the stress of this, or feeling overwhelmed with some of the things that are going on, the switching between the phases, and I'd given the recommendation to a couple of them that they should call the school counselors, but it seems like this is a bigger deal. Like, that there may be other students or even staff or others that may need to call in to talk to somebody just to, uh, approach it slightly different. So I was just curious if there's something available, or what we should be recommending to families in those situations.
Yeah, it's a really great question, Mr. Atherton. I'm going to actually invite Ms. Cobb to join us. As you know, she oversees the work of the social workers and counselors, and I know that they are doing a yeoman's job in terms of providing support. Ms. Cobbs, can you speak specifically to some of the ways that support is being provided?
Yes, ma'am. So right now, as far as support is concerned, our counselors and our social workers are available to speak to and support students as needed. But we also, our school-based mental health services, they are doing services, teleconferencing with students that they already were meeting with, as well as Cardinal Innovations just came out with a new hotline that is open to adults as well as students. And we have been sharing that, and we are sharing any mental health support that we come across throughout the district. We are sharing that on our webpage as well.
So that number for the hotline, you said, which site is it on? Is it on the remote learning or the Colvic?
It would be on the COVID site. We just got a new one late last week, so that one has to be added through Cardinal Innovations, and that one is really easier to get in contact with, and that one is the one that is for students and staff. Now, our school-based mental health, like I said, they are continuing to see their students that they were already seeing, and then if there is a situation, principals will call me and say, Ms. Cobb, we need this support, and then we will make sure that we get that support out to that family via the mental health support team that we have, that we use school-based, or if it's somebody in the community, and or through our SROs doing some wellness checks for us as needed.
Okay. Yeah, and I agree with Ms. Smiley that this week has, there seems to be a little difference in it, from just people's moving mentally forward, and seems to be a bigger mountain this week than it has been for a lot of the calls I've gotten. It seems different. And I think as we go forward, we're going to need more help, whether it's teachers, students, staff, families. It's not easy doing social distancing, but we got to do it. All right, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions at this time? If not, I'd like to connect us to Mr. Johnson, who's going to share the data with regards to student outreach.
So Dr. Felder, you can tell me if this should go before or after. I know we ordered the 500 mobile hotspots. Is that going to be part of this update?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
It will be, yes. Mr. Jones has that update, but I just thought, given the conversation that we're having right now would be a good time for Mr. Johnson to share the data. So, Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Dr. Feldman. Well, currently, there are 57 out of our 7,300 students that we have not been able to contact since this situation started. This equates to approximately 0.7% of our student population. This data represents students being contacted at least one time since closure. It does not represent the amount of student work, nor does it represent the ongoing communication. 6 of our 13 schools have made contact with all of their students. Strategies that are being used to contact students are phone calls, email, texting, checking in with neighbors, emergency contacts, connecting with family and friends, checking in during food pickup and lunch distribution, and our social workers are making home visits. The Sheriff's Department is also providing assistance to us, and the social workers are working with other schools that are not their base schools. When speaking to the principals about the difficulties of keeping up with our students, they mentioned that they are hearing some students have moved out of state to places such as California, Florida, and Virginia. Families have moved in with other family members to consolidate resources. They're also hearing that some of our families have lost services such as cell service and internet, and also many of our students' phone numbers have changed. Staying in contact with our students is an evolving situation as things change for our students and district.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any questions for Mr. Johnson?
Could we get those numbers sent out, Dr. Felder? It was hard to hear a few of those numbers.
Sure. I will repeat just this part of it, but absolutely we'll get it sent out. Mr. Johnson said that there are 102 out of seven. I'm sorry?
57 students.
How many, Mr.
59.
59 students? Okay, 57 students out of 7,359 that we've had no contact with. So, while we certainly want to have contact with every student, that number could be a lot higher. And Mr. Johnson then went on to share all the different strategies and ways that staff have been reaching out to stay connected with our families. But yes, we will certainly get this this data to you in the weekly update this week.
Will,
Fantastic.
one comment on that. Dr. Phil, 57 out of all of our students, that's actually high praise that we've been able to reach that number of students. But the other side on that, I would like to start seeing in our updates is the number of students that our teachers have actually been able to contact. Because I know that things are a little different, but we're still an educational enterprise, and I'm hearing students are being contacted by teachers, and so that we just know that the student-teacher relationship is there. So I would like an update on that, and I may be the only board member, but I'm just expressing where I am on it.
That is certainly doable. We are collecting those data, so we can certainly speak specifically to teacher contact.
Yes, ma'am.
No problem.
And so a question about that number. So that means that we have not just reached out to those students, but we have heard back. We have had two-way communication with the other 99.3% of students, or with their families. Is that right? Like it's been two-way communication, not just sort of like a teacher sent an email or sends emails weekly or whatever, but actually it's two-way communication with 99-point-something% of our students.
Mr. Johnson, can you clarify, please?
Yes, so that is a two-way communication. That's not a one-way communication.
Did you hear that, Mrs. Smiley?
I did. I heard it was two-way, which is excellent.
Yes, it is.
That's really fantastic. And so, and I believe Mr. Johnson said this isn't sort of an indication of whether or not they're engaging in the learning activities. And so that, are we also gathering that information, or do we imagine in the next phase of learning being able to gather that information?
Speak for the data that Mr. Johnson looked at, but Mr. Johnson, can you respond to that question?
Yes, ma'am. That data we can get our hands on.
So that is data that schools are collecting? So
Because that goes along with what I'm asking for also, that two-way communication with the students on the learning side.
Yeah, I think especially as we're moving to a phase where we are looking at asynchronous learning and teaching topics from quarters 3 and 4, understanding how many of our students, and then again with an equity lens, like broken down by identity and all of those things, like how many of our students are actually, you know, turning in the assignments or whatnot, or we don't have that evidence, would be helpful to understand.
yes, that is part of the plan in terms of collecting those data. Anything else at the moment? Okay, if not, then thank you, Mr. Johnson. And I am going to now punt to Mr. Jones, and he's going to give you an update with regards to the software, I'm sorry, the hardware that we have received.
So good evening, board members. We've been looking through our various suppliers and some alternative suppliers to make sure we've got enough hardware to do the swapping to keep everybody up and running, keeping in mind that the availability of repair facilities has really been constrained during all this. But I'm pleased to announce we've received to date 45 additional staff laptops, 50 additional chargers, and 500 hotspots. We're also anticipating in the next couple or 3 weeks an additional 650 Chromebooks and 50 more staff laptops. These should really help us ensure that everyone's got functioning equipment, and that'll all be equipment that we can use going forward as well in the long term. IT has established a swap station so that the staff and public can safely receive this replacement equipment and safely drop off defective equipment that we can quarantine and then eventually send out for repair. And we're trying to make sure that that swap station safety is the utmost consideration in making sure that we're keeping distance and we're treating any equipment as though it is in need of quarantine. We're also making sure with the hotspots that connectivity for graduating seniors is a very high priority. I know that's important to the board and the staff, and that's been a point of emphasis for DPI as well. And IT and CNI are also investigating device technologies for the 1,600 K through 2 students. We've been doing some research and looking at devices that are appropriate for that age group, as well as supportable and allow real-time engagement with teachers remotely. We're expecting a bus hotspot soon for evaluation to see if it's suitable for mobile hotspots throughout the district, seeing if they provide any advantage over the other hotspots that we have that would be assigned to individual homes. Also, as I think Dr. Gammon and Mr. Johnson mentioned, we're taking advantage of this teacher outreach to the individual students to inquire on the whether or not the students have access to internet resources. We've developed a form now that the schools can use to put in a request for a hotspot. IT is very much looking to the schools to vet those requests to make sure they're going to the families who really are in need and have vulnerabilities regarding internet access. So we've greatly ramped up our hardware support capabilities with the purchase of this new equipment and with the establishment of our swap station that we're scheduling folks to come by to do hardware exchanges. And we are also in possession of a lot of these hotspots, which we hope will bridge the gap for families that are in need of internet solutions. So with that, I will open it up to any questions you all may have.
Any questions from any board member?
Will, I have some.
Go ahead.
And the first one's going to kind of go back to the learning. Dr. Fielder, now we're going to start getting the data on the learning, reach out, teacher, two-way communications to the students. Can we get that broke down by schools? So we see if one school's having a harder time reaching their
Yes,
students.
absolutely. That's how we're collecting the data now. It's by individual school.
Great. The next one would be, Todd, on your swap stations. I'm not sure, is it going to be a central location, or are you planning on having community swap stations similar to how we do the food drop off?
No, what we have is we've got a central location at the bus lot of Gravelly Hill. We're keeping a 20-foot distance between our members of the public and staff, and we're making sure that we're limiting the amount of time that we're doing the swaps, just for safety reasons, and also to minimize any of the stipend impact that we have.
Just to throw it out, that I think being on this side of the county, I love this location that you selected, but it might be beneficial to also have one maybe at our new community
Welcome center.
Court, yes, center there, so we make it a little more convenient for the parents and staff at two different locations. It's just something to think about. On the hot spots, I'm just throwing this one out. When this first started, Representative Myers sent out something about Spectrum, where they were going to have it to where I don't remember. I don't have the email in front of me, but parents might be able to get internet access to go to those hotspots, or might not be losing their internet because of the coronavirus. It might be worthwhile. Somebody could look into that, and also check with Representative Myers and see if they could help provide more hotspots. Because when we get into northern part of the county, the bus option is going to be our best to get those students access.
Well, it should be noted that both the bus hotspots and the personal hotspots rely on the cellular network, and we know there are some significant geographic areas in the district where neither solution will really help. And frankly,
yeah, up in that north, and probably even in the southern part of the county, there's not an viable option. Okay.
And Mr. Jones, can you speak to the Spectrum deal? I know that that is one of the items that we address in the FAQ for families that's posted on the district's website. But isn't it true that families have to sign up for a contract? It wasn't exactly what it appeared to be, if my understanding is correct?
I think your understanding is correct.
Yeah, we did post that offer, and my understanding is they do offer some free internet for the introductory months, but then it does commit families to a longer contract.
Okay, so it wasn't as good a deal as it initially sounded, but unless we can park the bus in an area where there's a potential cell coverage, there's not anything we can do on that hot spot on the bus to enhance that.
Well, we'll be evaluating this unit that we get in, and we'll be trying to map out. I'm not sure how granular we can get, but at least some areas that we're going to see how well that coverage is. And where it would be really helpful is if we see some differences in the bus hotspot coverage versus the personal hotspot coverage. Although I'm not anticipating those differences will be significant.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're right. But when we park at bus, we'll probably park it where there's a parking lot where you could basically come and sit in the car and download some information to your device and then go back home and work on it.
That's my understanding about, these hotspots are generally made for access during bus routes themselves, But we know of several districts that have utilized them as kind of parked hotspots that can be accessed in the way you described.
But Mr. Roberts, we were also talking about perhaps stationing the bus in, say, a subdivision or community as well. So,
Yeah. Or in the northern part of the counties, in the southern part, you may not find a subdivision to park them in, but we may be able to work with one of our community-based churches in that area that if they have are willing to let us park there, our community center, that they might be there. We probably have to be innovative on where we park the bus to where there could be parking for families to come in and take advantage of the hot spot.
I have a different question about the I think you said 650 Chromebooks,
Yes.
which is fantastic. Are those replacement devices? Are they going to expand? Or who do you imagine would be getting those?
So we have seen a lot of damages increasing with the age of our Chromebooks, and the units that we have now are completing their 4th year of service. So knowing that we may have some significant challenges getting those repaired over the summer, particularly if the schools remain closed through the end of this year, that's going to be a big challenge how we get those back. So the anticipation was by getting these Chromebooks, they would allow us to bridge that gap to some extent, and they would be new Chromebooks that could be used in the fleet going forward.
That makes a lot of sense. And so those are different than you're looking at potentially at devices for the K-2 students. Are you
potentially different, or potentially they could be potentially that a similar device.
I just think there's so much more possible when a student does have a device. Although clearly we're getting plenty of paper packets out, which is amazing. But you know, when you have the internet access in the device, it just really opens up so many more possibilities. And I'm just thinking about predictions that schools may close again in the fall. I don't want to freak anyone out, but I know you've probably seen the same things I have, that is a possible scenario here. So I think some of these investments we're making, maybe just for more than beyond right now. So
I think it's fair to say that we're looking to address some real short-term needs, but also looking at some very long-term goals and making sure we have the capability to support remote learning beyond what we can see right through this immediate crisis.
Yeah, I think stemming off of that, there are lots of opportunities here beyond just the pandemic we're in. I mean, CTE classes, taking classes from different locations. I think there's a lot of goodness. I did have a few questions, and they were kind of touched on, but I just wanted to explicitly ask. So I hope we're trying to get these 500 access points out as quickly as possible, but at the same time, is there some evaluation to make sure it will actually work for who's receiving it? Whether they're, you know, as mentioned, I know in our northern part of the county, cell signals may not be there at all. Are we just asking if, you know, they don't have internet access and then we're providing a hotspot, or, you know, is there some, I know you had mentioned it's up to the school, but is there some kind of way to make sure that we don't inadvertently give someone an access point and it's going to be of no value to them?
Well, that's a good question. And I think, you know, we're aware of some geographic areas where that's going to be problematic, and they're part of the form for registering the need will include their address. I'm a little hesitant to be too overzealous in doing that, because there may be some folks who can get a bar or two, and that may help a little bit. So I think we would only rule it out if it was in an area that we knew was kind of beyond hope. And I think if you go up, I believe it's Eflin Cedar Grove Road, there's a long stretch along there as you go north toward 49 where there's a lot of problems. So to answer your question, we will do some of that triaging, but if there's a chance, it might be better to try that and see if it works, and we might be pleasantly surprised.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm more interested in getting them out as quickly as possible because a lot of students, as you mentioned, that are seniors don't have internet access. This would greatly improve their ability to not only interact with teachers, but also do things like look at colleges or technical community colleges or, continuing career items that are, critical for them at this point as well. So do we know if the need is greater than 500 for access points?
I don't think we know precisely, but we thought that would be a good starting point. The other nice advantage with these hotspots, we're buying them directly from, or we're procuring them directly from Verizon, which I think generally has the best coverage. Also, they will allow us to enable them and disable them, and that turns the billing on and off. So we have much more granular control than if we were signing up for, let's say, a year-long contract.
Okay. And is there is there any filtering on these hotspots? Is there any default firewall that's on there, or is it just wide open?
So all of our Chromebooks are configured to authenticate through our filters, no matter what network they're on. So that's one of the advantages of the Chrome environment. Even if they're at a coffee shop or a completely wide open, uncontrolled network, they're still authenticating through our filters.
Yeah, I was more meaning if they got an access point and say they're in second grade and we happen to have a computer and they get a hotspot. Um, I'm just thinking about making sure that parents are aware that us giving them internet access, their students are not filtered if they're using their own devices on that internet, and that they will need to monitor their students' usage.
Right, that's a good point, that with non-district issued devices, there won't be that filtration.
Okay. All right, any other questions from any board members? Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
So I'd also like to circle back to Dr. Keeling. Dr. Keeling, did you have an update to provide with regards to learning?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
So in addition to all of the great and massive amount of work that CNI is undertaking in the current time to make sure that students are continuing to learn, we are also looking ahead and looking to pay attention to the post-COVID-19 learning gaps. There is a lot of discussion in education right now around the gaps that we may see as a result of students not having this face-to-face time. And so we have formed a team who is working on addressing post-COVID-19 learning gaps. I think the team is unique in that I haven't seen that this is the focus of other districts in my research, but we are looking to address the pre and the post-COVID-19 learning gaps with an intentional emphasis on our centered groups. So this team is particularly looking at what do we need to do differently than we've been doing for our African American, Latinx, ELL, our ED, students with disabilities, homeless, students in foster care, all of those groups that we always talk about as our centered groups. So the team is gonna be looking to do the work of what do we need to do different. And the team will consist of representation from curriculum and instruction. So like Dr. Gammon is on the team, as well as Connie Crimmins, to make sure that our students with disabilities are represented. We have principals and teachers from each level, so elementary, middle, high. We also have student services staff that will be on the team. We asked for principals to give some recommendations of who they thought would be interested in joining the team, as well as ask them just to reach out to their staff. And even in terms of identifying people to be on the team, we asked principals to think about like their teachers of the year, as Ms. Bremer discussed earlier, the different characteristics that go into being selected as a teacher of the year. We asked them to think about staff members who are equity focused, those who are literacy trained and have knowledge in literacy, and staff who has had success with our centered groups, the identified groups that I just named. So some of the work that we've already begun to discuss is deciding on what we're going to focus on. We know that we're going to focus on literacy, as that is one of our main areas of focus throughout the district. We know that we're going to focus on social emotional learning. We are believing that we are also going to focus on math as well. We're just trying to figure out what all subjects we need to hit. The research is showing that students could lose up to a year's worth of math gains. So we really need to make sure that we're going to do some things differently as it relates to math as well. The work of this team, we already have MTSS in place that will help us to assess students and to identify the students who are tier 2. But as I said, like, this team is really going to focus on informing the work of MTSS with specific strategies, resources, method of instructional delivery that we're going to implement to raise the achievement and to accelerate growth for our centered students. So that's some of the work that we're getting ready to engage in. I did just want to make the board aware of that work, and that's all I had, unless you have some questions for me.
Questions?
Just a comment that I'm glad you're getting ahead of this now. I saw that report, or a report anyway, might have been the same one, about the math losses, which, I mean, up to losing an entire year's worth of math over the course of these few months plus the summer is, I mean, clearly that would be really, really challenging. So I'm glad you're including math in there, although literacy is clearly like a huge, huge focus for us. Yep. And I'm glad that you're looking at teachers who've had success with these groups of students, knowing that that's some of the data that we get back from student test scores.
All right, other questions or comments?
I will just say that, you know, it's hard to sometimes see a bright spot in this. I know, like, we all just think this is like such a struggle, especially right now. But one of the things that we talked about, and when I talk about this team, is that this is a chance for us to do education differently. Like, we know that those groups that we're talking about, what we've been doing hasn't been working. It may have even contributed to some of the gaps. And this is our time to dismantle a system that wasn't initially created for all students, and to create the system that is for all of our students in Orange County. So I'm really excited about the work that we're going to engage in. I'm going to have the team like really reading and doing research on the strategies and the methods of instruction that are going to need to be put in place. And I'm excited to see if we don't take the lead in how this work unfolds. So that's all I had. Thank you.
So Dr. Keeling, I just had a couple of questions. One comment, that's exciting to hear, especially given, you're right, we do have the opportunity to reset at this point. Are y'all considering summer programs, whether they are physical or remote? I know that we're all skeptical about the, you know, what's going to happen after, you know, the required closing, but you know, the Read to Achieve program, or any of those programs that we may be able to do remotely, or have y'all had discussions on not just the upcoming school year, but how do we take opportunity in the summer to try to do something different, or engage to make sure that that year of loss, whether it's math or reading, we can take advantage of, even if it isn't in a physical classroom?
Right. So we've discussed like these different moments in time, and we've just begun this work. And so like we've discussed, so what happens if we do come back after May the 15th? And what happens if we don't? What happens if it's not until the summer? What if we can't come back in the summer? What if it's 3 weeks early? What if it's not then? What if it's in the fall? So we're looking at all of those different snapshots in time. And then, as you said, looking at it from both perspectives of if we can't come back in the summer and we have to do more remote learning, then what can we start to implement remotely that begins to help our identified groups? If we have to wait till those first 3 weeks of school, what is that going to look like? How are those first 3 weeks going to look? And we've talked about, as I said, like having that social emotional learning, like that being a required, like that's where we start. Like for the first week or so, we've talked about hopefully having time that the state will say that staff can have a couple of work days before the students come, so that we can focus on social emotional of the staff. Like, so we're looking at all these different moments in time, and we're just beginning to have those discussions, but we are looking at all of that. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that, one of the things that stuck out to me in the discussion tonight was talking about families that have consolidated households, or are now in unique situations, and their learning environment being very challenging, right? Not to mention, everything else going on. So I know y'all will be discussing that, but that's top of mind as families are faced with things that they've never been faced with before, and us trying to ask them to learn remotely at the same time. So I think we're going to have to think very hard and long about how to make it a bright spot in some way, or to help reach out as well as we learn more.
Definitely. And if you all have any ideas, as I told the principals, this is the time to be innovative. If this was those different strategies that you wanted to try and thought, oh, we just can't do that because our hands were tied, like this is the time to let's consider them. So if you guys think of strategies, please let me know as well.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Keeling.
Okay, so at this time, I believe Mrs. Rath is next. She is going to talk to us about stipends.
Yes, I was just going to provide an update that from your last meeting where we approved those additional stipends, we have started processing those, and I just wanted to make you aware of that. If you have not received feedback from staff, I have. They are extremely grateful to you for this effort and for recognizing what they're going through. We are beginning to identify all of the eligible staff for the teleworking stipend of the $60 a month for the months of April and May, and we will the staff will start seeing those stipends in their pay on April the 30th. So thank you tremendously for that.
I believe I speak for the board. Our thank you is to them for what they're having to go through at this point. I mean, whether
Absolutely.
it's incredible. So please, as you get feedback, tell them that we thank them for everything they're doing in this difficult time.
We will definitely do that, and we all know that everyone has really pivoted and stepped up, and it's a phenomenal group of people.
All right. So any questions for Mrs. Rath?
Nope. It looks like.
All right. So as we wrap up this update, so as Mrs. Rath said, the Orange County School staff is a phenomenal group of people. And you heard Ms. Cobb's reference the SROs and how they have locked arms and supported the distribution of food in the district. Well, our SROs have actually put together a video and a short video, and we'd like to share that with you. But before it's shared, Ms. Cobb, did you have anything you wanted to add as Mr. Jones cues up the video?
Yes, I just wanted to say that we are, as a district and a community, are so blessed to have the sheriff department that we have. They are so helpful, and they love on our kids, and they wanted our children to know that they are still thinking about them in the midst of all that is going on. And they put together this video. Part of it was done when we were actually putting food boxes together and prepping food to go out to our families. So I hope you all will enjoy this video. The sound isn't working.
Yeah, this is a common problem with WebEx. I think you may have to send the link out to us just because it has to be in a specific format for the the audio portions of a video to stream correctly over WebEx.
We can definitely make that happen. Thank you.
All right.
Lots of good jokes in it too, by the way. I've seen it.
Well, well, we look forward to sharing it with you. And again, cannot thank the staff enough for all of their support and continued outstanding work as we continue to push forward and continue our focus on safety, food, learning, and the wellness and wholeness of our learning community. And so with that, that concludes our updates for this evening. And I will give it back over to you, Mr. Atherton.
So before we go back into closed session, I did want to just say that, you know, I've gotten lots of great feedback on the seniors. You know, both schools have started, you know, releasing in social media the information about the seniors and, you know, just sharing with the community, you know, all of these great successes. And I think it's been wonderful that the schools have been able to share through the different medias. And I highly encourage us to continue doing that in whatever form we can, just so, you know, these seniors continue to feel special for what the accomplishments they're doing. Also, you know, the teachers and staff and principals seeing, you know, the results of that. And I know our social media has ticked up a little bit, so I encourage us to continue doing that so we can see, you know, all these wonderful stories. With that, board, we're not adjourning, but going back into closed session. So we would need a motion to do that.
Could just be a motion.
To go into closed session.
It could just be for the reasons previously stated and on the printed agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So board, just remember to go back to the original link I sent out. We'll close out this meeting and go back into the closed session. So Thanks everybody for attending tonight. Thank you for your continued hard work and support of our schools and our community. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.